I'm what you could call a collector of bootleg Pokemon games. Pokemon Diamond and Jade, Chaos Black, etc. It's amazing the frequency with which you could find them at pawn shops, Goodwill, flea markets and such. They're generally fun, even if they are unplayable, which they often are. The mistranslations and poor quality makes them unintentionally humorous. I've been able to find most of the ones that I've played online, but there's one that I haven't seen any mention of. I bought it at a flea market about 5 years ago. Here's a picture of the cartridge, in case anyone recognises it. Unfortunately, when I moved about 2 years ago, I lost the game, so I can't prove you with any screen caps. Sorry. The game starts out with the familiar Nidorino and Gengar intro of Red and Blue versions. However, the press start screen had been altered. Red was there, but the Pokemon did not cycle through. It also said Black version under the Pokemon logo. Upon selecting New Game, the game started out with Professor Oak's speech, and it quickly became evident that this game was essentially the Pokemon Red version. After selecting your starter, if you looked at your Pokemon, you had an addition to the Bulbasaur, Charmander or Squirtle. Another Pokemon. Ghost? The Pokemon was level 1. It had the sprite of the ghost that you encounter in Lavender Town before obtaining the Silph Scope. It had one attack, Curse. I know there is a real move named Curse, but the attack simply didn't exist in Generation 1, so it appears it was hacked in. Defending Pokemon are unable to attack Ghost. It was also said that they were too scared to move. When the move Curse was used in battle, the screen would cut to black, the cry of the defending Pokemon would be heard. But it was distorted, played at a much lower pitch than normal. The battle screen would reappear, and the defending Pokemon would be gone. If used in battle against the trainer, when the Pokeballs representing their Pokemon would appear in the corner, they would have one fewer Pokeballs, the implication that the Pokemon died. What's even stranger is that after defeating a trainer and seeing Red receive $200 for winning, the battle commands would appear again. If you select Run, the battle would end as it normally does. If you select Cursed, if you did, upon returning to the overworld, the trainer's sprite would be gone. After leaving and re-entering the area, the spot where the trainer had been would be replaced by a tombstone, similar to the ones in Lavender Town. The move Curse, however, was unusable in all instances. It would fail against other ghost Pokemon. It would also fail if you use against trainers that you'd have to battle again, such as your rival or Giovanni. It was, however, usable in your final battle against them. I figured this was the gimmick of the game, allowing you to use the previously uncaptured ghost, and because Curse made the game so easy, I essentially used it throughout the whole adventure. The game changed quite a bit after defeating the Elite Four. After viewing the Hall of Fame, which consisted of Ghost and a couple of Pokemons I used for HMs, the screen cut to black. A box appeared with the words, "Many years later." It then cut to Lavender Town. An old man was standing, looking at the tombstones. You then realise this old man was your own character. The man moved at only half your normal walking speed. You no longer have any Pokemons with you. Not even the Ghost, who, up at this point, has been impossible to remove from your party through depositing in your PC. The overworld was entirely empty. There was no people at all. There was still the tombstones of the trainers that you used Cursed on, however. You could go pretty much anywhere in the overworld at this point, though your movement was limited by the fact that you had no Pokemons to use HMs, and regardless of where you went, the music of Lavender Town continued on an infinite loop. After wandering for a while, I found that if you went through the Diglett's cave, one of the cuttable bushes that normally blocks the path of the other side was no longer there, allowing you to return to Pallet Town. Upon entering your house and going the exact tile where you start your game, the screen would cut to black. Then a sprite of Caterpie appeared. It was replaced by a Weedle, and then a Pidgey. I soon realised as the Pokemon progressed from a Rattata to a Blastoise, that these were all the Pokemons that I've used Cursed on. After the end of my rival's team, a youngster appeared, and then a Bugs Catcher. These were the trainers that I had Cursed. Throughout the sequence, the Lavender Town music was playing, but it was slowly decreasing in pitch. By the time your rival appeared on screen, it was more of a demonic rumble. Another cut to black. A few moments later, the battle screen suddenly appeared. Your trainer sprite was now of the one of the old man, the same one that teaches you how to catch Pokemon in Vidrian Sea. Ghost appeared on the other side, along with the words, "Ghost wants to fight." You couldn't use any items, you had no Pokemons. If you tried to run, you couldn't escape, the only option was to fight. Using fight would immediately cause you to struggle, which didn't affect the Ghost at all, but did chip a bit of your own HP. When it was your Ghost turn to attack, it would simply say, ... Eventually, when your HP reached a critical point, Ghost would finally use Curse. The screen cut to black a final time. Regardless of the buttons you pressed, you were permanently stuck in this black screen. At this point, you only had one option, and that was turn the Game Boy off. When you played, New Game was the only option. The game has erased the file. I played through this hacked game many times, and every time the game ended with this sequence, Several times I didn't even use Ghost at all, though he was impossible to remove from the party. In these cases, it didn't show any Pokemon or trainers and simply cut to a climatic battle with Ghost. I'm not sure what the motives were behind the creator of this hack. It wasn't widely distributed, so it was presumably not for monetary gain. It was well done for a bootleg. It seemed he was trying to convey a message, though it seemed I was the sole receiver of this message. I'm not entirely sure it was. The pointlessness of it. Perhaps he was simply trying to morbidly inject death and darkness into a children's game. Regardless, this children's game had made me think, and it has made me cry.